I think she's here.
Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to I wrote down October 10th, but I think it's the 9th. Welcome to the October 9th Everett Public Schools Board of Directors regular meeting. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the Secretary please call the roll?
President Mason.
Present.
Vice President Andrews.
Present.
Director Lassane. Director Mitchell.
Present.
Sorry, Director Mitchell.
Okay.
Oh, we're square now.
Director Nankar.
Present.
Student Representative Pollock. Student Representative Tran.
Present.
Thank you. All right.
And Director Mitchell.
Present. Our first item of business this afternoon is the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Cohn, will you please introduce tonight's agenda?
Certainly, consistent with the plans established at your 2018 summer planning workshop, tonight's agenda contains several elements related to both the district's strategic plan and the board's annual goals. There is a segment for routine business, a segment for board comments, a segment for the superintendent's report, a segment for strategic progress reporting, a segment for community comment, a segment for new business, and one for upcoming agenda items. Since publishing the agenda to you, two changes have been or will be made to it. Item 10.1, the superintendent's report, will be updated during the meeting, as is customary for our regular meetings. Item 13.1, approval of legislative priorities for 2019 was amended. We added the presentation slides, and we've added a draft of legislative priorities. I think it's 2019. Mr. Moore, it's 2019, yes? Yeah, okay, thank you. So the board may elect to change the order of business by a majority vote of the members. This is not the point in your agenda to request items be removed from the consent agenda. In all other respects, the agenda is as it was originally published to you, and we ask your approval thereof.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
Is there a second? It has been moved by Director Mitchell and seconded by Director Lassane to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries. Section 5.0 is recognitions, and tonight we have no recognitions, which takes us to Section 6.0, public comments, and I believe we do have some public comments this evening. On behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's meeting. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational topics and the importance of involving members of our community in its meetings. School board meetings are designed to conduct district business in public. We welcome ideas and opinions presented in that same spirit. I would like to share how this portion of the meeting works. First, the superintendent will call you to the podium in the order you signed up. Each speaker has 3 minutes. All comments are recorded, which will then be made available for future viewing by the board and the public. Public comment section is for the board to listen only. It is not a time for debate or discussion. As board president, I have the responsibility to ensure the meetings and all conversations are orderly, productive, and respectful, and I appreciate your help with this responsibility. Dr. Cohn, who was our first speaker this evening?
Our first request this evening is from Patrick Hall. Patrick's a resident of the district. He wishes to speak with you about the Longfellow School. Patrick, the green light will signify the start of your 3 minutes, the yellow a 30-second warning, and the red the expiration of your time.
Superintendent Cohn, board directors, thank you. I spoke to you a few weeks ago regarding the economic value of historic buildings and about how adaptive reuse of such buildings can substantially revitalize a neighborhood. The Everett School District owns one of the most historically significant buildings in the city, the Longfellow School, and has proposed to demolish it. The proposed demolition has been promoted as a cost-saving measure. While the costs of maintaining the building are significant, they pale in comparison to the cost of demolition. The district has stated that the cost of maintaining the building is $75,000 per year. However, the low bid for demolition of the building and construction of parking spaces came in at $2.1 million. That price is 28 times the annual upkeep of the building. If 65 parking spaces are built, that's $32,000 per space in a lot which is never full. The district has not made a case to the public for how it makes sense to spend millions to save thousands. This decision would be even harder to explain if the expected budget crunch comes to pass. In light of this, it is hard to understand why there would be any hurry to demolish. Even if it took 10 or 20 more years to find a buyer, you would still save money by keeping it. The building has great views, historic charm, and is eligible for a 20% historic tax credit on any rehabilitation effort. In recent years, there have been several historic buildings lost in Everett. The nationally registered Collins building was demolished by the port to make way for apartments and restaurants. A block of homes in the Donovan Historic District was knocked down for the hospital expansion, and 2 blocks of historic commercial buildings were taken down for the event center. As tragic as those events were, at least you could understand the rationale. However, the destruction of a building such as the Longfellow School to create parking spaces would be unprecedented in our city. Such a move would be a waste of a historical landmark, coupled with a waste of taxpayer money, all to create the most expensive and arguably least needed parking spaces in Everett. This idea is bad from an environmental point of view, is bad from an urban planning and economic development point of view, and is even bad from a financial point of view. The students that the district is supposedly looking out for by demolishing the school would in fact be its biggest victims. It is their heritage and their inheritance which would be squandered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hall.
The second speaker this evening is Jody Moyer. Jody is an employee of the district, and she is representing as president of the office professionals, and she would like to speak with the board about an equitable wage increase.
As the EAEOP president, I have been receiving messages from across the district from our office professionals regarding the raises the teachers received, averaging between 7% to 22%, while our office professionals received 3.1% that was scheduled within our contract. I am standing here with the voices of your office managers, your office assistants, your general office secretaries, and your payroll techs, your accounting techs, and your admin assistants. I am saying yours because they are representing you and your message to the community, making every single student, parent, and community members is cared for, respected, and understood, making sure every single person that walks through our doors has received the highest level of customer service that we can provide. Our schools have been understaffed while the workloads have been increasing year after year. The members have not complained because we understand the mission. Inspire, educate, and prepare each student to achieve to high standards, contribute to our community, and thrive in a global society. This mission starts with the front doors of our schools, from the secretaries that walks each family through the enrollment process, the secretary that enters the data, the secretary that makes sure the student has all of his or her needs to start out successfully in our schools. That secretary is making sure the students lives in the service area, that the secretary is processing the field trips. That secretary is making sure our parents and volunteers are cleared to be with our students. That secretary is making sure students is receiving the care they need to feel safe and welcome in our schools. Our members that are working in the buildings are making sure the staff within all our schools have all the tools and resources, making sure we are successful. My list can go on and on right now, and it can take days and days, but I want you to think of one thing today. What do we mean to you? What are the paras? What are the secretaries? And how much are we worth to you? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we will move to section 7.0, the consent agenda. Dr. Comey, you please introduce the consent agenda.
Certainly, the board's consent agenda includes repetitive business items. Examples of this type of item include meeting minutes, personal actions, expense vouchers, surplus lists, gifts and grants, and recurring contracts. Sometimes the consent agenda will include items that occur less frequently but are of a routine business nature. The less frequently occurring consent agenda items are usually reviewed by the board in its Friday report, 1 or more weeks before the board before the board meeting, when those items are scheduled to appear on the consent agenda. This gives directors time to ask staff questions about those items or to consider a discussion about the policy implications of those items. If a consent agenda item is removed by the concurrence of 2 directors, that item is placed in new business, and the remaining items are automatically renumbered by our system. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. By definition, a consent agenda is not debatable. In the case of this consent agenda, the superintendent's office has received no questions or comments regarding these items. Therefore, the consent agenda is presented as published for your approval.
Thank you. A motion is in order to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It is moved by Director Mitchell and seconded by Director Andrews to accept the consent agenda. Does any director wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and place it in the new business section of the agenda? Hearing no requests, we will move to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion carries. This brings us to Section 8.0, Board Comments. This is a time when directors have an opportunity to share information and comments as they relate to their district business. Director Mitchell, do you have anything to share? Would you like to start?
Sure, thank you. I'm sorry I missed the meeting 2 weeks ago as I was out of town for work. But the weekend before that, I had attended the WASDA, so the School Board Association's legislative priority meeting, where the school board as a state sets their legislative priorities. There was a lot of discussion about the inequities in the pay as outlined by the state legislature when it came to teachers and staff. So I heard your comments today, and I thank you. Because there was so much confusion and late notice of clarity and the like. Also, a lot of discussion about student safety. A student panel was there talking about the fact that it is not metal detectors and SROs that really make them safe. It really is the humans. It's the secretaries, it's the paras, it's the teachers, it's the counselors, it's the principals that make them feel safe in their school when they have a connection to all of the adults in their school. And that was really interesting. And so tonight we will be talking about our legislative priorities or at a district level. So the meeting I was at was at a state level so that when legislation comes up from the state, as in salaries and salary schedules, that WASDA, the state association, knows how to answer that on behalf of all the school districts around the state. And there was a resounding cry, the fact that there are great disparities in pay as outlined, great unmet need funding throughout the state. And so it was a very interesting meeting because it's happening all around the state as well as in this district. So thank you.
Director Nankar, do you have anything? Actually, let's go to Student Representative Tran. We'll start all the way at the end.
I have no comments today.
Okay, thank you.
The comments from me as well.
Dr. Lissing?
Yes, I had the opportunity of attending the Snohomish County STEM Summit, which happened to be at the end of September. It's a coalition of people within the state and OSPI that come together to focus in on what are we doing to enrich our students in the areas of STEM. Because it is the focal ground of the jobs that are projected to be here within the state of Washington, within our state, by the year 2020 and thereon. And one of the takeaways from the summit was that we need to focus. Dr. Janae Twitchler, again, I believe that's her last name, spoke again. And one of the things that she brought to light again and again and again, I've heard her speak before, is that we need to be surgically focused on 4 primary groups. And as we focus on those 4 primary groups, we are bringing up the whole mass of students within our state into understanding STEM and being prepared for those jobs that are going to be in the future in 2020 and thereon. And those 4 particular groups happen to be young women, rural students and their families, low-income students, and students of color. And the reason why we need to focus in on those, that no matter how hard we focus in on pushing those particular groups up 1% or 2% a year, we need to bring them up maybe 5 years at a time to catch up with the majority of students that are going into STEM-related fields in college and after college and the career paths, the jobs that are available right after high school. Because no matter what we're doing, when we look at 1 or 2% growth per year, we're not really making big headways and changes that will impact those particular groups. And when we start focusing surgically on those particular groups, we can see leaps and bounds in the 2 to 3 years at a time growth in math and science and engineering, those fields that are necessary for those students. And as a result of that, the collective whole growing and being prepared for the jobs of the future here in Washington. If they so choose to stay here, we've got to have jobs waiting for them, and there are jobs waiting for them, so we've got to get them ready. So I thought it was very great that I had an opportunity to go there, and I thought it was great that we had representatives from the district there. And I'm hoping that from that, we can get roundtables established with our strategic partners in the area so that we can have intern programs for our students, apprenticeship programs for our students, and we can push that level of surgical focus on those 4 categories, and as a result, the whole. So it was great, great summit. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to attend.
Dr. Andrews?
Ask a quick question about what you just reported on. Were those categories in order of priority, or are they just general? Like the young women, number 1 you mentioned, is that a priority?
Well, she mentioned that those 4 areas are the priority. There, you can't really look at one without looking at some of the others.
Yeah.
But if you look at those 4 groups as the priority, and each being number 1.
Okay, so
then we can
definitely in order.
Yeah, they're not in any particular order.
Okay. I have no comments tonight. Thank you.
Okay. I had, to follow on Director Mitchell's comments, we hosted the Directors Area 1 Fall Regional Meeting. So for those of you who don't know, the Board of Directors has an area, which is different from the ESD and our district and WASA and all that, but it goes all the way to the border, I believe, and then down and encompasses Mukilteo. So it was the largest gathering of directors from different districts for a regional meeting that they've seen in quite some time, if maybe ever. And there was a lot of conversation around the bargaining this past August with our different groups. And it was a very interesting meeting. It was an opportunity for directors to share with other directors in different districts sort of how it unfolded within their own districts. And I have to say, it was definitely a different year for the bargaining than anyone had experienced in the past. The legislator did not provide the clear parameters that we needed through the process, and there was a lot of pain felt, I think, in some of the districts. So we are regrouping and moving forward, but it was an interesting conversation to be able to share that across the region to find out how other districts handled the same type of scenario. I then also had an opportunity to attend a luncheon at Washington State University, Everett, and Chancellor Petrie, although he likes to be called Paul, had did a luncheon for community members, and I was fortunate to attend and get a fairly detailed overview of the programs that they offer, the number of students that they currently have enrolled in those different programs, how they're industry aligning the programs for the jobs that are in our area, and where the students are coming to them from, and things like their graduation rates, and then also their future plans and how they intend to grow that campus and add more space for more students. And it's a pretty unique model because it's what they call a 2+2 model, where all the students that come to them are juniors. They're not, and they don't need an associate degree. So it's a different programming than if they were accepting people from 2-year community colleges that had already completed an AA degree and then decided to go on for a 4-year degree. These people just automatically transfer as long as they have the prerequisites for the program completed prior to applying. So they're able then to go on to get their 4-year degree. And then we got a very detailed tour of the building and got to see all the really cool equipment they have in that building, and there was a bit of envy there, but we're going to be there someday too. And then lastly, we had Greg Lobdell here from the Center for Educational Effectiveness. He reviews our data, our survey data, our SBA data, our graduation rates, and my 2 takeaways were that Everett has the highest graduation rate for all area districts around us. And we also, that's right, thank you. And we also outperform the state on every single SBA measurement at every single grade, both in math and the ELA, and almost every district in the area. So it was confirmation that the work that you folks are doing is paying off. So we really appreciate it. It makes me proud, definitely, to serve this district when I see data like that. So let's see, I think I got to everyone. So we're going to move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Cohn, what do you have to share with us tonight?
Well, I have a few updates for you, and I think probably the first and foremost would be the recognition that fall is upon us. And I think probably you've noticed that the weather's changed a little bit, and it certainly has for all the rest of us too. We're very much looking forward to the onset of the holiday season, and wanted you to see a great picture of pumpkins, which is a little bit of a symbolic photo for the work that staff did to put together a great Saturday weekend event for folks at the, it's not called the Pumpkin Patch. What's it called now? Swan's Farm. Thank you very much. So I want to thank folks who worked on that as well. We've got 4 categories of information for you this evening, and let's launch into them. First, in the same vein as Director Lassane's comments, you know, we've been working on a number of signature programs at our high schools, and we've been working to build our STEM and CTE programs over the last several years. We've also been working with our labor partners in the community to develop a trades-oriented program set and to develop some apprenticeship opportunities for students. Last week, Cascade High School students participated in our second Trade Up event, which is aimed at introducing students and career specialists and counselors to regional careers in trades that are in particularly high demand. Over 230 students from our 3 comprehensive high schools attended this year, and we also had some drop-in classes throughout the day, and we had some visitors from neighboring districts. There were hands-on stations hosted by Community Transit, Snohomish County Road Maintenance, the operating engineers, the Northwest Carpenters, the Laborers International Union of North America, Everett Police Department, Everett Fire Department, the Aerospace Joint Apprenticeship Committee, Ready Mix, Waste Management, the Cement Masons and Plasterers of Washington. So we had a really fantastic turnout and support, and a lot more students this go-around who were drawn to the event and who are being interested in and connected with some very very well-paying trades. We also had a visit from Congresswoman Del Bene, so we're drawing some attention to that work from the federal level as well. Over the past several years, we've worked to engage school teams in a cycle of continuous improvement. I think you're well aware of that from your State of School reviews in particular. We want to promote collective responsibility for student learning and support the alignment of individual, team, and school goals. Again, this year, our Professional Development Council is organizing teacher-led learning teams aimed at helping teachers collaborate and observe teachers in other schools in ways that improve their practice. This picture shows a first grade team from Jackson Elementary, and they're engaged in observations of balanced math practices in Garfield's first grade classrooms. You may recall that Garfield was one of the schools that Greg Lobdell showed tremendous improvement and has been recognized again this year as a high improving school in the district. We've had a lot of excitement over the past week or so. Last week there were curriculum nights throughout the district, and at Jefferson Elementary School, the Chargers called on their mascot, the Rhino Thunder, to help with their festivities, and we thought you'd enjoy some pictures of that event. At Hawthorne Elementary, each student and staff member has made a sea creature to add to the school's aquarium, and that's aquarium in quotes. As you walk into the school, you can see this display, and the bulletin board that was created is really a very clever display that reads, "We may all be different fish, but in this school, we swim together." If you get a chance to visit Hawthorne, I recommend you stop and take a look at that display. It's really cute. Family engagement in our district can be an awful lot of fun. It's not all business, you know. This particular event at Emerson Elementary was a family engagement activity that involved grandparents. This was Grandparents' Day, and it was well attended, and I'm told it was great fun for everyone who was involved. At North Middle School, math teachers are using blueprints of the school construction project to make math come alive. When I was teaching, we call this applied math. I don't think we call it that so much anymore, but that's in fact what it is. So we wanted you to have a quick window into how staff at North are involving students in the construction activities in a real life fashion that we very much hope will stimulate their interest in math and in some cases the construction trades. I want you to know the elementary 18 naming process is about to begin very publicly. We're going to be sending postcards next week inviting families at Woodside, Cedarwood, and Forest View to help name the school, whether they're the folks who are intended to move to the new school or not. We're asking everybody in that area to participate. Of course, anybody in the community can participate, but we're trying in particular to engage the families in those communities to participate in the naming process. Now, there'll also be a form online, and board members have been invited to offer suggestions, and I think two of you have submitted suggestions. So I'm delighted that you're engaging in the process as well. Eventually, of course, suggestions will come to you for a decision about the name of the new school. We've also been engaged in proceeding with that high school growth mitigation committee work that you've asked us to engage in, and the capital bond planning committee as well. Mike Gunn's going to give you a very brief update on where we are with those two committees, their formation, and the work they're about to do.
Thank you. So on the High School Growth Mitigation Planning Committee, we had planned for about 30 members. We opened up the online application process for about 2 weeks from August 30th to September 14th. We received 42 community applications and 3 student applications. Currently, we've screened that down to 29 members, and we have discussed these selections with the superintendent. We're hoping to have an approved list fairly soon so that we can get those invitations out in anticipation of our first meeting on October 24th. We have planned about 10 meetings, and the committee's work will finish up at about March 31st. We have 18 community members so far, representing the 3 high school feeder pattern areas, and we have 3 students so far. We're looking for probably one more community member from Everett High School and one more student from Cascade High School. So that's the Growth Mitigation Planning Committee. The Capital Bond Planning Committee is a very similar process. It's about a month behind that other process. So the online applications will open up from October 8th, which was yesterday, through the 24th. We're looking for about 33 members, about 24 community members, representing a broad cross-section of the district. We're looking for 2 principals or assistant principals representing each of the 3 high school feeder patterns, again. 1 student each from the 3 comprehensive high schools, and then each board member, as you I'm sure are aware, has the opportunity to propose up to 3 members, and of those, the superintendent will be picking 1 from each board member that they've proposed. The first meeting is set up for November 19th. We're hoping to make selections and send out letters by November 5th in anticipation of that. And the final comment I wanted to make was that we have been asked on occasion kind of what would make a good selection. So as you think about who you might want to propose to be considered by the superintendent, I'm going to give you some advice from my many years of doing this work. Possible characteristics for members to look for. Individuals providing balanced perspectives. Try not to have individuals who have single issues that they're really passionate about. We're looking for a broad-based perspective. North, Central, and South residing families. So people that live in all 3 regions. Working and stay-at-home parents, diverse socio-economic backgrounds, and diverse business-related backgrounds. And to avoid potential conflicts, for example, relatives or vendors that are doing work for the district. And then also it's great if they've had some volunteer experience with our district or other public agencies. That's my advice. So,
thanks, Mike. Will, by the way, I asked Mike to develop that list for you so that you would have that advice, and we'll go ahead and send you that set of suggestions, so that as you think is recommendations. Yeah. Remember, we added this to the committee because you all asked us to how you could suggest people in the community. So we developed a way that you could suggest people in the community that wouldn't then look like a board appointment, because you wanted to make sure that it wasn't a board committee, that it was a superintendent appointed committee for the structure that we worked on in the past. But you also wanted not to have to create a process all by yourself. So it really is up to you whether you want to suggest 1 person, 2 people, 3 people. We just created people. 3 or no people. You don't. Yeah, you don't have to suggest anybody, right? So, but this was a structure so that everybody had an even footing in the process. All right. Thank you very much. And then I think very quickly I'll point out that Elementary 18 is making great progress. The construction firm is making great progress. The contractor continues to pour concrete foundations and concrete slab on the 1st and 2nd floors. And the structural steel framing is approximately 50% complete, and interior wall framing and the HVAC ductwork has begun. Woodside Elementary School's design team completed schematic design and value engineering for the modernization. The site plan shows the layout of the school when the project's completed. We've also, by the way, attached to the superintendent's report this evening the designs, so that you can look at more in depth at the designs, and they're out there for anybody who wants to peruse where we are at this stage. Notice that there's a very large new secure center courtyard that will be developed as part of this modernization. District staff and the design team are working on both the upcoming conditional use permit submission to the county and the State Environmental Policy Act review, or people know this as a SEPA review. So we're making tremendous progress. The month of September is always a busy month. I think I've shared with you a little bit about the start of school, and I think I shared with you in writing that our enrollment came in remarkably close to projections. I think our projection was 20,088 students, and I think I told you that we're still looking for 8 of those students as of October 1st. So we had 20,080 on our October 1st count, which is, I think, 0.00039 error factor in the projection. So I want to thank all of the team that works on those projections again. We only needed to move 4 staff because of the the variations in where students showed up versus where we projected that they would show up, which is a very low number. It's actually not quite as low as last year, though, even though we were a little bit under our projections last year, a little bit more under our projections. We only had to move 1 staff person. Very good start to the year in that regard. I was able to get to all of the schools in the first month of school. That's generally my personal goal. Some more than once, depending on what the activities were, whether it was an athletic event, a school visit, that sort of thing. I'd also note that this has been a very, very busy month, and so will October be a busy month for visiting with legislators and state folks. In addition to the work that you're doing, I've had an opportunity to meet with several legislators and will as well the rest of the month, and had a couple of opportunities to meet with the state superintendent. I will tell you that what you've described in the way of concern about how all of this legislation rolled out and the extent to which districts are facing very, very significant financial strains as a result of the legislation and the funding and the reductions in local levies and the reductions in the funding formula over the next several years are very much on legislators' minds. The underfunding of special education is of particular importance to a number of legislators, and we expect to see a proposal to move toward fully funding special education across the state. I don't think it will happen right away, even though it's part of basic education. It's constitutionally mandated. The legislature very clearly both knows that it's not funded and is intending to take some steps to move in that direction. I had the pleasure of serving on the special ed safety net task force that OSPI put together at the legislature's direction, and that group's report went to the state superintendent. I believe he has now published that report, and we can see our way clear to fully funding special education across the state in the next couple of biennium, if the legislature takes the recommendations as he's proposed them. So I think those pieces of information are good news, as are those that we've shared with you about the district's start in our operations. So that's my report this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A lot of good news to share, especially on the construction update. It's always exciting to see those photos come through. Okay, we will now move to section 10.0, and tonight we have a strategic progress monitoring report on summer school, and I believe Mr. Fleckenstein is going to lead us in that effort.
Well, as Dr. Cohn had stated, fall is upon us, and it seems like such a long time ago that it was summer and actually warm. But tonight's report is an opportunity to reflect upon the work of the team and the team members that are with me tonight to present, to reflect upon the work that we collaborated on to support our students, and specifically to support students in our on-time graduation efforts to keep them on track towards graduation. Our objectives this evening are to describe the interdepartmental coordination that takes place to run summer school, to prepare for an effective program. We're going to share with you some of the challenges that we faced while implementing our summer program, share with you how we're strengthening our programs, the number of participants who are at each of the 3 levels of our summer program offerings, the impact that our summer programs are having on on-time graduation, and then finally, what our next steps are to continue to improve for next school year. Summer school work is aligned to our strategic goals, but primarily, chief among them, is that students graduate from high school ready for college, career, and life readiness with 21st century skills. Our key performance outcomes are aligned to our core value within the district of equity. Each of the key performance outcomes that you see here are designed to create an accessible and equitable education for all of our students to meet their needs, so they are successful in our schools. I would like to just kind of take a moment to highlight that making summer school happen takes an interdepartmental coordination that starts as early as the very late winter months where we start our planning. And with that, I would like to just share with you an attitude of gratitude that I have within the district, and that I know each of our leaders who are behind me have as well, for all of the classified, the certificated, administrative, and support staff that work together to make this happen. Without all those unsung heroes, we couldn't plan and make this happen every year. So just want to make sure that we recognize everybody who contributes. And in addition to that, I would also like to just point out the team. We didn't send out a memo to color coordinate our outfits tonight, but for some reason we did. And that just is, I guess, taking collaboration and teamwork to a higher level in Everett Public Schools. So thank you for being on the same wavelength, everybody, with one another. I appreciate your coordination. Well, to learn, students need to have the fuel to make their minds work. And one of our interdepartmental partners this year to make summer school happen was our food and nutrition program. And under the leadership of Mr. Moore and Joanna Peeler, our summer meals program was very successful to serve students who needed food and access to lunch and breakfast over the summer months, in addition to those students who are participating in summer school. So a terrific partnership that we have and commitment to our students with food and nutrition. You might recognize Rick Larson, Congressman Rick Larson there in the upper picture. He visited Hawthorne Elementary in their summer lunch program and participated in serving students meals that day. We also, and also under Jeff Moore's department, John Pike and his transportation team coordinate all the transportation that goes on in the district to make summer school happen. As you look at the numbers up there on the screen, you'll notice a highly efficiently planned system to try to maximize not only time on the road, so kids aren't spending lots of time on buses, but also to conserve resources. And one of the things that I will point out, this transportation plan only required 26 total vehicles to 12 sites to make that happen. That is extremely efficient, and I thank Mr. Moore and his team for that work. Also, the coordination of our school sites, not only where the programs are going to be located, but also all the summer work that's taking place. And as the board has learned over the last couple of months, all the construction projects related to upgrades for safety, upgrades for security, all that was taking place at the same time as our summer programs. So in addition to those physical upgrades, we also had Wi-Fi upgrades for Cascade High School at the same time as we were doing summer school. And I really appreciate Brian Beckley and his team and Mike Gunn and his teams working together with teaching and learning to coordinate all those sites so it was a seamless and uninterrupted experience for our kids. The picture that you see in this particular slide is actually kind of a to show the lightheartedness of the team when summer school is done. It is a big lift to make summer school happen, and this happens to be the bubble party, and I want to thank Dr. Lancaster for this photo, because it was a celebration. She brought the little wands with the bubbles, and we celebrated, as you can see, the success coordinators in the picture, and Principal Dave Peters, just the hard work that everybody put in to get our students to summer graduation, and to support our on-time graduation rates. I would also like to point out a key partner in making summer school happen for our students in need, which is the Everett Public Schools Foundation, who awarded this year 35 scholarships for high school summer school to ensure that students got the credits and access to, that they needed to be graduating on time. And now I'd like to invite to the podium Daniel Natividad. He was our elementary summer school site administrator, and he's also Cedarwood's assistant principal.
So, good afternoon. My name is Daniel Natividad. I'm the assistant principal at Cedarwood Elementary School. I've had the great opportunity to be asked to be the summer school principal for the past 2 years for the program. Our elementary program grew slightly from last year with us hosting our summer school at 7 different sites. Inviting students who are below standard in reading and math, we had a common instructional program that we presented to our students. Our students were engaged in reading and writing using a selected Reach for Reading ELA units. Being intentional, we had a science topic that was connected to this Reach for Reading unit, taught with integrated guided language acquisition design strategies, or GLAD strategies, to increase the engagement and also the understanding of our students. Integrating the concept of growth mindsets, our math curriculum focused on key concepts that students would see in their upcoming fall in their grade level. New to this year, we integrated our counselor second step program in order to intentionally build the social emotional skills of our students. As stated before, we hosted our elementary school program at 7 sites and invited 900 students from 17 elementary schools. Engaging our students in 70 hours of instruction, we provided free transportation, free lunch, free breakfast. Along with the 7 sites, my own building, Cedarwood, also delivered targeted supports for 45 students that are entering 1st and 2nd grade. Our elementary school program is intentionally designed to close the achievement gaps that we see with our students. Almost half our summer school students are English learners, with about 30% of our students being Hispanic and 13% of our students being Asian. A fifth of our students also qualify for special education. Lastly, 72% of our students also qualify for free and reduced lunch, and so we're making a big impact with our students in need. Beyond supporting our students' academic skills, the summer school experience has been beneficial and been a positive experience for our teachers, especially the teachers who are new to the profession. Newer teachers are able to dive into the Reach for Reading curriculum along with our math curriculum. More experienced teachers are able to practice effective strategies like GLAD to enhance their own toolboxes. The following video that you're about to see is an example of a GLAD instructional design lesson that occurred at Emerson Elementary School. The teacher is a music teacher who teaches at Lowell Elementary School.
Matter can change and unfold.
There are different forms that matter can take.
There are different forms that matter can take.
So listen up for goodness sake.
So listen up for goodness sake.
Sound off.
Sound off.
Changing forms.
Changing forms.
Sound off.
Sound off.
States of matter.
States of matter.
Sound off.
Sound off.
Solids, liquids, gases.
Solids, liquids, gases.
Solids have a definite shape.
Solids have a definite.
So yeah, really fun classes. So the biggest challenge of summer school that we faced was actually, oops, I think I skipped a page. Oh yeah, sorry. The biggest challenge that we faced during summer school was having to compete against the allure and the fun of summer. Our team worked extremely hard to make sure that we connected with families to keep our attendance numbers up. If you notice at our graph, we had a 85% average attendance rate for all our sites for the 5-week program. A big part of our attendance success was the purposeful work of our elementary assistant principals who actively engage our parents with daily emails, daily phone calls to make sure that our students were coming to school. Knowing that relationships are really important, our elementary assistant principals reach directly to families by doing home visits in order to re-engage these students. They also help organize attendance incentives like lanyards, dog tags, and also organizing our celebration assemblies. Lastly, just based on my classroom visits this past summer, our students kept coming because they were having fun with learning in the classroom because of the engaging curriculum and content that was provided by the teachers. Just based on the intentional work of our teachers and our staff and our parents, I felt that we made summer the best part of our student summer, our summer school, the best part of our school summer. So here's Cynthia Jones to talk about Everett Ready.
Well, thank you, Daniel, and good evening, everyone. While elementary summer experience is for our students who are entering first grade through fifth grade, Everett Ready is for our students who are entering kindergarten. We were able to offer Everett Ready at 14 of our elementary schools this year. Everett Ready eases the transition into full-day kindergarten by targeting students who have not had preschool experience and students who are our English learners. We're very grateful of the funding provided by the Everett Public Schools Foundation to support Everett Ready. The intention of Everett Ready is to help students become familiar with their new school and with school routines and expectations in a smaller group before the start of the school year. Teachers have a chance to build relationships with students and their parents and to learn about how to personalize strategies to better support individuals. You can see the daily schedule here. We model what students will experience in kindergarten with lots of instruction in the skills and expectations for learning. The two photos are examples of the posters that we use with the students to help them learn expectations. There's also a parent engagement component. While the students are eating lunch, the staff spend 20 minutes with the parents, teaching them about school routines and expectations, and providing tips to help them support their children. This is we lost a slide somewhere. The Everett Ready Progress Report utilizes the 21st Century Skills section of the regular progress report to share with parents how their children are doing in these fundamental skills. As you can see, they include following directions, taking care of own needs, managing feelings, and interacting positively with peers. Students were rated at the start of the 8 days and again at the end. All students maintained or showed growth in the skills. I'd also like to comment on the Special Services Extended School Year program. They again offered extended school year to those students whose performance could regress over the summer without consistent opportunities for practice of skills. 46 students from preschool through 12th grade participated. These are students who are receiving support through life skills, extended resource room, and developmental programs. Students were able to continue to receive the specially designed instruction from their IEP in academic, social behavioral, self-help, communication, and motor therapy, enabling them to maintain skills. Teacher feedback about elementary summer experience in Everett Ready was very positive. They felt the curriculum was well planned and organized and appreciated having all the materials prepared in advance. They report that the students found the lessons engaging and enjoyed summer school. One of our goals is to develop confidence in students for whom learning has not come easily. We hope that every student who attended left believing they are experts. Moving up from elementary, at middle school, we continued our program for English learners and built upon the math program we started last year. Middle school summer school was offered at 2 sites, Heatherwood and Evergreen. Students were invited from all 5 middle schools to attend at one of those 2 sites. In our English learner program, 6th graders were targeted to help ease the transition to middle school, but 7th and 8th graders with beginning English skills were also included. One of our not-so-hidden agendas for summer school at all levels is to provide intensive training for teachers in best practice strategies, specifically those that support our English learners. Teachers receive 2 days of training prior to summer school and then have the opportunity to implement the strategies with a smaller group of students in a more relaxed atmosphere. It's a great chance to practice and develop the strategies they've learned, like you saw in the video clip of the music teacher from Lowell. Now I'd like to turn this over to Kathy to share about the middle school math program.
Thank you. So in year 2 of the program, we held for the middle school math program. This is year 2, hosted at Heatherwood and Evergreen Middle Schools again. And we provided for all incoming 6th, 7th, and 8th graders both a support course for those that have been struggling through the school year and not successful on their SBA to be more successful this upcoming school year, as well as bridge courses to provide an additional entry point into our advanced math pathways. Students were engaged and benefited from the blended learning environment, both hands-on activities and using Chromebooks. So this shows how the bridge courses provide that additional entry point for our students. So specifically, a student completing 6th grade that wanted to be in get to 8th grade algebra would took the summer bridge to 7-8 compacted. They're in compacted 7-8 this year, and will take 8 algebra next year. Similarly, the 7th graders took the bridge to 8 algebra, and they're taking the 8 algebra course this year. So this summer, 85 students took advantage of the opportunity to enter the advanced pathway. We've had really great success with this. Last year, we had 36 out of the 37 that took the bridge to 8 algebra, complete and pass Algebra 1. Over 100 students were given instruction that were to fill the gaps, increase their confidence, and build proficiency so that they can be more successful this school year and on their SBA. And now I'm going to turn it over to Callie Spear.
Summer school attendance at middle school was much like elementary school in that we were battling family vacations and summer camps, which is always a challenge at the middle level. And the systems that we have in place for attendance were much like the elementary school as well, where we had the Blackboard Connect calls. We made personal phone calls to students who missed 2 days in a row. We provided home visits. And we also had a weekly reward system for perfect attendance where we did a drawing, and the picture is of our students who completed their attendance challenge and were winners of the first drawing week. Teacher feedback was really positive this year. So we had teachers who loved the curricular resources and the hands-on activities for their students. They felt that the training that they did prior to summer school helped to prepare them to be successful throughout summer school. And also we noted that teachers were able to see student growth through a variety of different activities, and they saw the student growth in relation to the Common Core state standards. Some additional positives from this summer school, middle school program were parent feedback was very positive. We had students who were excited to come to school, and parents were noting that, and teachers noted that as well. Teachers and students both love the activities that addressed a variety of learning styles. So in the pictures, you see kids doing a variety of different activities. And then we also had a student recognition program this year for respect, responsibility, and readiness, which led to high levels of engagement with a weekly drawing that was pretty successful at both sites. And I'm going to pass it over to Lisa Hager for the high school portion.
Good evening. It was our pleasure to again host the high school summer program at Cascade High School. This does provide us with a centralized location for the entire district, which we do see to benefit a lot of the students. We have both a 3-week and a 6-week session of credit recovery courses. We also, for the 6-week session, that gives us an opportunity to spend a little more time in sciences and math. We were excited this year to be able to host a STEM partnership with the Lake Washington School District and their WANIC courses. These were no cost to our students, and we were able to host out-of-district students and invite them to see our district. As you can see, if I would do the slides like I should, thank you. We were able to host biotechnology, research and design. A lot of those classes were really neat. Our teachers taught those classes to all the students, and they had lots of interesting science experiments that they were able to share with the entire group. This provided a lot of our kids a new opportunity, new things to do. We also, again, have our online high school, lots of classes. This worked well for the students that already had their one-to-one devices, and we're looking forward to expanding this next summer when all of our high school students have their computers. We're happy to see that our course completion rate has remained pretty consistent. Our total courses taken are still fairly high. Very pleased with our total credits earned, and we really haven't changed the staff that we've had, even though we're supporting more students every year.
Good evening. Again, this year we had the opportunity to serve over 500 unique and individual students. You'll see that for us, one of the things we had looked at was intervening in earlier years to help students become either credit ahead or caught up on their credits instead of waiting till their senior year. You'll see that this year we had a 34% reduction in the senior enrollment. And that appears to be, we had caught those students earlier throughout the school year to get them ready to graduate on time. You'll see that the number of students by ethnicity, the number drops, and I want to point out the reason that that number dropped is that WANIC did not keep that data. We kept all of our data. So that is the students who are specific to our school who did not enroll through Lake Washington. And again, we saw an increase in our Hispanic and Latino students and our African American students this year. Although after hearing Director Lassane, I'm going to have to up the game to increase that by more than 2% each year and look at 5 or 10%. Okay. Our grade distribution, we saw great success. We reduced the number of Fs and incompletes this year, and we saw that our passage rate for our online classes stayed pretty consistent in that A and B range. We are looking at, there was a slight increase in our unsatisfactory students who did not complete. That was a 1% increase, and we're trying to figure out exactly if that was an actual increase in numbers or was it how we kept the data. So we're looking at that as well. Our course distribution, you'll see that the majority of classes taken for recovery were English, world history, mathematics, and U.S. history and government. And that has stayed pretty consistent over the past 3 years at least, that seems to be where the majority of students needing credit recovery come from. The highest percentage, again, being English 1. We did reduce the number of Fs and Us. Last year we were at 184. This year we're at 135. And you see that we're trying to figure out the increased number was in our juniors this year who did not see success. We're not sure why that is, but it is a wondering of were there more things for them to do over the course of the summer that they were involved in. By ethnicity, our standout here is that we reduced in all areas the percentage of Hispanic students, however, does stand out as being disproportionate to the number, to the percentage of Hispanic students enrolled. And I would turn it over to Jeannie Willard.
I'm Jeannie Willard. I'm Director of College and Career Readiness and On-Time Graduation. If you've seen me up here before, you know that our summer programs are a critical piece of our on-time graduation work. And so the credit recovery that we work on becomes more coordinated as the years go on. One of the pieces that we worked on that's really made it a well-oiled machine is really using our technology, having real-time communication. We use OneNote primarily, but when we're setting up our programs, we use Google Docs. and a lot of effort to actually find out in real time what it is that students need. And during the summer, we keep track of every single student. And you'll see special focus, of course, on our seniors who will be graduating that summer, where everyone is pitching in to understand what the student needs and to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure the student succeeds. We spend time going to homes, picking up students in vans, calling kids, not in a Connect Ed way, but really reaching out to kids, texting them, finding out what's going on when they're not with us. It's a personalized case management approach that takes place not just during the actual summer school time, but before and after it, because we are really about wraparound services for our students. This is an example of that OneNote I was sharing. You could pick almost any of our seniors and what you would see would be something similar. This was a student that I was working with, but when I say I was working with, well, 5 teachers collaborated also on this particular OneNote and shared the progress of the student. We had 3 success coordinators just on this one student alone. Administrators that you see behind me were also coordinating efforts for the student. The student walked in during the summer and said, I'm going to need another year of high school. And by the time everyone put their heads together and actually worked with the student about what they liked and didn't like, because that plays into what they can and they can't do, especially when you're working very hard and there's a lot of demands, the student changed their mind and came back and said, I think I could do some of those things. And I can't tell you the round-the-clock work that took place, both on the part of the student, which was amazing, but also on the part of staff. One of the other important pieces is during that process, he really thought about where he wanted to go in September and actually made steps. We helped him get letters of recommendation and complete his application for college, and he had a solid plan by the time he left us. So not only did he graduate, but we saw him actually take his next steps, which was very rewarding. It was really moving to work with him. In the summer, when you get to experience it, our summer graduation is a really powerful event. You see the stories really come to life. I get to go up there, but our school administrators get to share the stories of students who, against all odds, graduated. And I really mean against all odds, personal, academic, belief, belonging, all sorts of pieces that really go behind this. And you see their family stand up there and cheer in a way that you just wouldn't see otherwise. We had 22 summer graduates. This is actually a little smaller than we've had in the past, but this is also a testament to the work that goes into all of our summer senior work prior to summer taking place. One of the other pieces of this is our online re-engagement program, Graduation Alliance. That is also part of our district, has also seen many graduates in a way that we have not seen in prior years, where they have now been in the program for many years and we are seeing them really graduate. So 8 students graduated from that program in July and August, and 6 have graduated since we started school this year. So we're seeing many graduates through that program. I should highlight, we see teachers, success coordinators, and David Asava, one of our fabulous students who just wasn't sure how he was going to finish math. Again, stepped over that line and really followed up on some things he was very scared about. So with that, my passion is, of course, on-time graduation. I love that I get to do that work, but all the work that you see leads up to this moment. So you see our elementary, our middle school, and our high school, and what a coordinated effort that is. So next steps that you would see across the board is more time for that classroom setup, to really tie our new teachers as part of their induction program, to see our curriculum in action during the summer. It's a great time to really get their boots on the ground and started before September is there. iReady, which we use it as part of our progress reporting system during the summer. And then really use our SBA scores to make sure that students are both being recruited and we're following up to make sure that they're in our summer programs. Then we keep continuing to expand our offerings at the high school level, both the free WANIC offerings, the ones that we have that are online high school, and our credit recovery programs. Canvas has been a great tool, and this is a learning management tool where all of our classwork can take place there, and students can access things that they've missed before. We continue to support our special education students who receive guided study. They get extra help during the summer, but we want to enhance that to make it more successful. We have a significant special education population during the summer. And then we continue to monitor how students are performing in our credit recovery classes. So really keeping tabs on students who are not being successful during the summer. With that, I want to hand it back to Larry, because we're wearing matching outfits or something today. So
you look fabulous.
You look good too.
Well, this evening has been a great opportunity, and thank you for letting us present to you tonight the work of our summer programs. This evening we described the interdepartmental coordination that it takes to get summer school planned and off the ground. We explained the challenges that we faced and addressed head on this summer to get students to school and to help them be successful. We illustrated how we're strengthening our programs in that model of continuous improvement to make sure that each year we get better and better. We provided an overview of the students who participated and the impact that their summer learning had on student growth. And then finally, the next steps that we plan to take for next school year to make sure that our summer programs are meeting the needs of our students. It's a great celebration to see how our summer program has shifted over the course of its time from a reactive model, and now in the high school level, particularly moving into a proactive model. That's very validating, I think, for the team. And I also want to just thank you for being here tonight. It's High School and Beyond Night at Jackson High School. I know they all probably wanted to be there, but thank you for being here tonight and placing your focus into this presentation. I appreciate it. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for your participation and for being here tonight to help us walk through the different parts of our summer program, which is amazingly robust. I was surprised to learn that not more districts are doing this kind of program just because of the research and evidence of what we call the summer slide, and also providing opportunities for students to either graduate or to go on to higher levels outside of the school year, the academic school year. With that, I will open it up to directors if anyone has a question or a comment at this time.
I have a couple questions. First off, I want to apologize. I was texting my daughter, who is at Jackson, asking me about colleges she needs to see and what she needs to talk about. So I'm sorry for my divided thing, because there's things sometimes a dad can't do. I don't know why. But I have a couple questions for Cynthia, if that's all right. Yeah, so I just want you to know, I have a really good friend who is a para at Jefferson and loves how she's included in the Everett, and just EL para, and just really loves it. But a question for you really is, with the Everett, it would be a question too for oh my gosh, Matthews. Catherine. When the foundation supported all-day kindergarten, we were able to see how those all-day kindergarten kids look towards other low-income kids, free and reduced lunch kids at third grade standard. Are we now at 3 years of ever ready to be able to see if those third graders, how those third graders are compared to their peers who might not have been part of Ever Ready, just to really see a positive impact or not?
So this is our third year, which means that
they're second graders.
They're now second graders. Yeah, it's going to be difficult because it's such a short program, just 8 days.
Okay, I just because I guess that's the difference: a full year of full day kindergarten versus that
24 hours.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity.
But
because
yes, they're second graders this year. So.
Okay. But again, it might not be enough time to see that impact by third grade.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, that's
okay. Okay. Director Lassane?
Well, I do want to say thank you and congratulations on the success. I look at it as successful because your attendance records was in the 80%. I mean, that's better than in some cases in regular school. I mean, my gosh, that is superb. And what you did to take the time to ensure that the kids were there and make it fun for them. Because if it's fun for them, they stay. So it's very hard when the needle is right there at the top edge to push it even further up. But you know, when we have more and more students attend summer school and it is fun for them, I bet you we're going to see 100%. And so that's the next goal is, you know, how can we continue to make it fun for the kids so that they're there and they want to engage. And thank you for taking the time to ensure that it's fun and making the calls and commitments, waking those kids up when they're sleeping and miss the bus or whatever and going and picking them up. And thank you so much for that. My question is, when we've received in the neighborhood of 135 kids with Fs and Us, what would it look like as far as the work necessary to bring that number down? What would we have to do in order to bring that number down for those kids that participate in summer school?
That's a great question. Part of the statistics is the honesty that we report them, right? So the number that you see, the 135 or so that were an F, an incomplete, or U, are students who actually attempted a course. If they actually attempted the course, we count them. We didn't just pull them out because, oh, they got halfway through, but it didn't quite make it, so we'll just take them out. We actually report everybody who attempted a course. And we ambitiously sign students up for the credits that we know that they eventually need to get back on track for being on-time graduates. So sometimes students will be signed up for 3 courses, but they'll only finish 2. And that third course, if they had made that attempt to start it, we count that as, unfortunately, a U or an incomplete. So that feeds into the numbers, but it's an accurate representation of kids engaging in summer coursework. And we've reported to you. We are getting better at being more selective about how many courses we sign them up for initially, and if they are ready to add another one later, we'll add them. But we do want to paint an accurate picture for each student and their family about what their credit needs are, so it's not a surprise later.
Also, my next question is, what would it look like to ensure that those kids that don't do very well on SBA are given the opportunity, in a strong sense of the word opportunity, to attend summer school?
Oh, that's something that my colleague, Dr. Joyce Stewart, is very passionate about for next summer. Joyce, would you like to comment on that, or would you like me to take that? All right. As you've pointed out, one of the things that we need to work on for next year, and I think was also listed up here in one of the slides, is that we need to actively reach out to students who are below performance standards on the Smarter Balanced Assessment. Those preliminary results come in at the end of May. That is a short turnaround time. However, it is a doable turnaround time to get those kids signed up for summer school and make those connections with families. And that's work we need to work on for next year.
Engaging the families and finding and giving them the opportunity and I guess the knowledge that summer school is very vital.
Yeah, and that work has been very successful to this point at the elementary level. It's the middle school level that we really need to focus on more specifically.
Thank you very much.
Any further comments?
I had a few comments. I just kind of made notes as you went through the presentation, so a lot of them are just kind of procedural things because I'm curious as to how summer school works and find it pretty amazing. I mean, this is really just proof that sometimes kids just need a little bit more time to be able to accomplish what they need to. But I thought your comment early on, and I really enjoyed seeing the coordination necessary to have summer school be successful. And you said that you start planning for summer school in late winter, so it's like pretty soon we'll be starting planning for summer school already. Yep. I had a question as to, especially at the elementary level, of the number of students that are invited, is it a really high percentage that actually come and participate?
I would invite Dr. Jones or Mr. Natividad up for the elementary attendance and participation. Thank you.
So we have our eligibility criteria that we use to invite students, and SBA is one of those criteria. But we invite double the number of students who actually attend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We've learned over the last few years that that's about the ratio of attendees we get per invitation.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And is there a fee for the?
No.
No
it's all
fee for
free.
summer school at elementary level?
Correct.
True for middle school also?
True for middle school, true for Everett Ready.
Okay.
Not true for all the high school.
Okay, yeah.
Credit recovery at the high school.
It's free. Yeah.
Right. But credits aren't, if they're taking a credit-bearing class.
No,
like-
credit recovery.
Right, I understand. And I'm saying, but credits aren't free.
Credit costs.
And some of the programs like offered through DigiPen, is that a cost?
All courses through Wannick Summer School, like DigiPen courses, are free. Primarily, it's online courses that people pay for.
The Everett Ready, it's really interesting to see the parent engagement portion of that. Just a comment there. And the progress report,
Yeah.
I just thought, oh boy, as a parent getting that progress report would be so helpful. And
Good.
It's such a great report. Is that something we developed here?
It is something that we developed. We looked at the teaching strategies gold indicators for those areas for entering kindergarten level expectations. And then that actually carries through into the progress report for those skills through second grade.
Great.
So the parents will see that again throughout kindergarten and then first and second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you made the comment that the purpose is to develop confidence in
Yes.
these learners, and I can see how that would be really helpful in doing that. Yeah, that's great. Enjoyed seeing the middle school math participation numbers and kind of the pathways there. I know that's going to reap great benefits. I had a question about online high school. Do students who go to online high school actually have to physically come to school at some point, or is it all offsite?
Yeah, if you'd like to.
They do not need to come on site.
Okay.
They did for many years.
Mhm.
We found that to be a barrier. So all of the orientation is online. They have to do that. And once they do that, they can continue on in the online program.
So that has reduced barriers. That's great.
Yes, because often they had trouble navigating and didn't know when they were coming.
Yeah.
However, if a student needs one-on-one or in-person support from a teacher, we can set up meetings for that at the summer school site.
Okay.
When you say online.
Pam, can you use your microphone, please?
For the online high school students, at the end of the year, students have to return their one-to-one device. For those students that are going on to summer school, are they allowed to keep their devices, or do you have to then reissue it at the beginning of summer school and then take it back and then reissue it in high school?
Yes, that is something that we will have to figure out the logistics of in our planning sessions beginning in late winter. And Brian Beckley and his team will be integral in developing a process for that. And so I thank you, Brian, for your advanced participation.
Any further questions?
Sure. I just wanted to make one last comment, and that is after listening to you, Dr. Willard, the event of summer graduation will be so much more meaningful. I mean, it's always a great ceremony, but hearing you describe today the efforts that go into, getting those kids to cross that stage is just really amazing. So thank you for those comments. And thanks for summer school. It's just, what a great program, yeah. Thank you. Helping us very much. Thank you.
Any further questions? I was just going to end with a comment that Chris Reichdahl in the office, OSPI, came out with his budget priorities today, and he put $10 million recommended into extended and expanding the day. How did he put it? A pilot program to extend or expand the school day or year. with the recognition of the work that you're doing and we're already doing here, the importance of that for, I think, eventually making it more wide scale across our state. So that's great news, and hopefully his recommendations will be taken to heart. So thank you all for your participation here tonight. Appreciate it. Okay. With that was lots of good information, good questions. Let's see, we have no information or discussion topic this evening, and we have no unfinished business. So we will move to section 13.0, new business. Oh, I didn't update that. But Mr. Moore is in front of us, and I believe he's going to talk about our legislative priorities.
Yes, thank you. I know at our agenda review meeting on Friday, we all kind of collectively recognized that we need to be talking sooner as information begins to unfold. And so I walked away from that and helped try to update last year's priorities. And I'll just tell you, in terms of the theme, is recognizing that we're in a different point in time. The same issues exist, but we're after the end of McCleary, according to the state Supreme Court, much to our disagreement. So these particular set of priorities are more specific. As Director Mitchell mentioned, there's different challenges for different districts, and so we tried to narrow down. Cabinet has reviewed these yesterday. I'm not certain that we are listing this as approval, but certainly some feedback and some takeaways or a process that you may define after I quickly go through the presentation that we can bring back to you based upon that. And one of them that I thought of that WASA has within their priorities is school safety. So SROs and some funding for that. So that's one I thought that is not embedded within this particular list. But so I'm just going to quickly go through the priorities, and the intent is to let you guys have a discussion and then provide some direction on how you'd like to proceed. And I will be brief. I think you've had an opportunity, a brief opportunity. I think they were posted last night, but to see that really we were following the same format of provide equitable and ample funding for basic education. And there's really 5 categories of that. Actually, there are 6. One of the ways that they can provide ample funding is for the second bullet, and that's to help us correct the levy formula that creates great inequities. You'll see that the school construction simple majority points are the same as last year because they have not been addressed. They continue to be not addressed as we go forward. So providing ample funding. With the outcome of our recent labor negotiations and with the minor adjustment by the legislature in the last session, our shortfall remains really unchanged going forward. And you can see it grows out in future years. A big part of that is the phase out of regionalization and the funding relative to that. And you'll see that that's a second request for us, is to maintain regionalization. So the next one we're familiar with too. These are the other 5. So do not reduce established regionalization factors. And I'll show you on a slide to follow that the regionalization factors, which are for our newest director, their cost of living increases for districts within the Puget Sound area primarily, but they recognize the salaries here, in order to address the cost of livings, should be at a higher level. But there's a certain area within Snohomish County, primarily around us, where they gave us an extra benefit because we are the highest in the state generally, and then it phases out over time, creating a structural deficit. We also included reinstating the state salary mix factor. When we look at last year's data, the statewide average was 1.49, and we were at 1.59, meaning our teachers were more experienced. We look at that gap as being around 6.3 million. And they don't have to reinstate the salary schedule. If we're providing information on the years and experience of educators, they can fund based upon that, and it's more fair and it's equitable. And then K-3 class size compliance, we're simply stating if you don't provide funding for building classrooms, then compliance is challenging for us at best. And so along with other districts, we're putting the pressure on them not to require compliance. I think we're 15 educators short at this point in time, but over time, enrollment will crowd us out of that. So unless we can build schools, we're always going to be chasing our enrollment and our ability to get those revenues. So we know that we have a problem going forward.
Would you please go over the graph in detail?
Sure. This is the overall table is the blue line represents our estimated budget before collective bargaining, and it assumed that we had historical cost increases for all labor groups between that first reading in July and the August adoption. In fact, before the final TA, we also had to estimate to what extent we thought the bargaining would occur and build it into the final budget. So the yellow is our budget forecast. The agreement was for a higher level of commitment. And so we anticipate when we come to you on November 6th with the 4-year fiscal outlook, that line will drop down some.
So, Jeff, would you please trace the dark blue line that you just described and tell the directors what it means? The dark blue line.
The dark blue line was anticipating the significant increase when they fully funded salaries in the first year, but kept us at a 3.1 cap. So what that would do is provide a salary funding that we actually couldn't spend because we agreed to a 3.1 cap or worked towards that and committed to that well into our teacher bargaining as well. And so it was under the assumption that the 3.1 cap was real, was valid. Our attorneys agreed with that. There was a differing opinion that occurred somewhere in the summer. Other school districts began to agree with that opinion and settle for higher amounts. Our superintendent of public instruction then said it's vague and it doesn't exist. And so our assumptions going into the year was that by stocking up that fund balance, we would be able to sustain over a longer period of time what is the structural deficit associated both with regionalization and with the significant cut to our levy. So the yellow line is fast forward August 15th when you have to publish it.
So trace the blue line and tell them what it means, please.
Okay. What it would mean is that we would be able to sustain our operations without a levy fix until we'd begin cutting for the, the 2021 school year. So it allowed us to sustain and convince our legislators that the phase out of regionalization and what other needs we needed. So the red dotted line is our 6% commitment. The red solid line is our floor. And does that explain?
So what does each of those percent figures represent across the blue line?
They are the percent ending fund balance as a percent of total expenditures. Per our board policy, 6,000, we have to remain above 5%, and we've always said in order to operate above 5%, we need to be at 6%. So they are the total percentage of fund balance as of August 31st of each year. And then the blue line is looking at if there was a comparable increase.
The light blue?
The light blue.
Okay.
Is if there was a comparable increase for all other groups.
So the dark blue line is what you projected over multiple years when you brought the first reading of the budget to the board.
Correct.
So it assumed about a 3% cost increase for the district over that time period, about a 3% on average increase over time based on history.
Right.
And it also calculated what happens when the levy drops off and regionalization drops off.
Correct.
Yes. So then the second reading is represented by the gold line?
The gold line, yes.
So, and the gold line shows us what?
It shows the same, it provides the same information, but increases the labor burden. It anticipates a bargaining settlement based upon what was occurring around us at the time.
So that's what we settled for.
No, actually, we settled after that.
We settled after that.
Right.
Okay.
We settled near the end of, I think, August 27th or something, 3 days before that line was projected.
So what does it mean when the gold line drops below the red horizontal line?
So at that point, what that means is why it means that we need to make cuts. And right now,
what does it actually mean? What is 2.2%?
2.2% is it's 3.8% below our commitment of 6% fund balance.
Then what happens the next year?
Then it drops below, and we would be going into binding conditions, and the state would come in. 0 is
assuming no cuts.
Assuming no cuts.
Right. What's the green, the light blue line there?
The light blue is if we were to open up contracts and agree to a district-wide increase of 10%, that would be the additional track for our revenue. And so, as we begin moving forward towards the fiscal outlook, we are going to provide you more non-budgeted numbers and look at our varying conditions, as we mentioned, ending fund balance. But at this point in time, if you look at the regionalization factors, it's about 8.5 million across all programs. About $1 million of that would need to be sucked up by categorical programs, and the rest of it, 7.5 million, is a cut to basic education and special education. The mix factor was a cut of 6.3 million. Each one of these collectively, we need to do our best on to convince the legislature that the end of the day, when 2242 was settled on, not all the right solutions were in place. And we need to work collectively to allow that to happen. I think the other thing I'd mention is the State Employees Benefit Board. I was just at a meeting at Lake Washington this afternoon with the Department of Revenue and the Human Services Division. And I think that as it begins to unfold, we learned a lot today. They have settled a contract, meaning statewide contract with all of the unions, and they have agreed to a multiple 5-section document that's better than what the legislator had provided. But where we're still falling short is over enrollment. The funding isn't there, and they've improved. For example, they're going to give us funding based upon FTE, but then we have to pay based upon head count. So you might have a full FTE of a paraeducator, but really it's 3 different people doing lunch duty, and you have to pay 3 times that. So they've increased the multiplier. They're making certain recommendations, but we're staying close to understanding how we can influence that outcome. And probably one of the biggest challenges, we don't provide benefits to substitutes. And under their plan, we would. They also are not necessarily recognizing that special education employees are a part of basic education. So there's a lot of challenges to put pressure on the overall body to know that if you're going to do that, then just revert it back to us. It's cheaper for us to run our own health insurance program.
Can I interrupt and ask a question? I know we usually wait, but is the yellow or the light blue line reflective of exactly where we are today with no changes in the legislature and the increase to teacher salaries? Certificate.
Yes, with the caveat that it is exactly where we plan to be today based upon August 15th, and we built a certain amount of budget capacity, and we're hoping that it improves, but it can also...
Which line?
The yellow line was developed as a projection in August, and we're refining. We're going to have our S275, as we mentioned. We're going to have more information.
So that accurately reflects our September payroll, or it has not been updated since August?
It has not been updated since August, but there was additional contingencies put in for possible bargaining outcomes. So it's really stretched us. If we were to again invest in other groups, and we'd have to do a budget extension because we're approaching our ceiling based upon the best information we had on August 15th. And I will say that date because I think that's when we sent it into ESD. And it was August 22nd when Superintendent Reichdahl.
Right. I guess I understand that we have to send it in, but have we done updates since then with sort of the reality of our payroll and that kind of stuff and where that places us?
We've looked at our payroll. We don't see a drop in mix factor of notable sense.
Okay.
But we won't know until we send in the S275. We've looked at our fund balance. It seems to be about $1 million higher, but we know that a lot of the one-time expenditures didn't get done by August 31st. So we're thinking it's $2 million higher, but it may be $1 million. We haven't closed the books because we haven't been able to gather all of the federal revenue grants requests. It's always at the end of August. That's why we have until, October 25th before we know.
Okay.
So we're preparing to present to you on November 6th updated versions of this.
Great.
And different scenarios that include if they fix the levy. As I cautioned the board earlier, it's most likely, given the environment, and without a fix in regionalization, that they're going to authorize a levy a level higher than 2,500 or higher than our voters approved. And I think we will be contemplating a supplemental levy before we get through this 4-year period.
Okay. Thank you.
So the urgency clearly for all of us, and we're not alone. There's some misery or company in misery or whatever the phrase is when we're down there, and and affecting the right people because so many agencies are involved is one of our needs, and possibly our legislatures, when we meet with them in early November, can help us define that, or they can take some torch from this that will help us.
I ask a question. As far as if the legislature does not come through with any modifications in the next couple of months or by January, which line better reflects the direction that we would be forced to achieve or go into? Is it the light blue or the gold?
It's the gold.
It's the gold.
Pending a decision to open up bargaining agreements with all other groups, then it's the blue. Right now, we anticipate are planning for a cut of 11.3 million. If the legislature does not change it, it's another 4 million. We'd be up to 15.3 million if we open up agreements. And that's where we're having preliminary discussions. We're in the same quandary, and I'll show you a flow chart of where there's a lot of discussion. Dr. Cohn met with Senator Braun. There seems to be recognition, and Superintendent Reichdahl's proposal today outlined one possible levy fix. There seems to be an awareness, yet we have to prepare. And you'll find in our next conversation, which isn't about legislative priorities, it's more about this heavy conversation, is a flow diagram that we think we have until about January 30th for the legislature to do something, or we begin to formally engage our public in a significant reduction of force that exceeds attrition. So 2 years ago, the legislature went in early in January, and they passed a bill that kind of provided relief and then got to the end and then created this monster of a formula. But it eliminated the concern about RIF. This is a triple cliff. I mean, it's a big change that we need to work on, and it's imminent, but it's also broad enough, and I'll show you the next slide. It's broad enough in this region here. So these are the different regionalization factors. The light green is 6%, the middle green is 12%, and then there's 18%. And we're up in the, of course, in the area right up here that's at 24% and at jeopardy of being cut. So the collective bargaining process recognized the current funding level, and publicly there's been a lot of statements about how much money we have. There's not a lot of conversation about how the money decreases over time to the tune of that 7.5 million for special ed and more. So it gets worse after that, and we want to convince the legislature to provide equitable and stable revenue sources for the future. And we're not too particular where, but it's more than, in order to avoid a supplemental levy, they'd also have to invest in special ed, and they'd also have to invest in a mix factor, or at least equalize a mix factor. So we need 2 or 3 of these things to be successful in the future and keep the mantra going. So this, I think, Director Mason, is what you had requested. This is the map that's out there that helps visualize how we're in that market. And this up here is where some of the bigger deals, Shoreline, Edmonds, Everett, and our neighboring districts, we're not alone, and we're not at the top in terms of the bargaining outcomes, but we are at the top, on the top salary mark, and below on the post.
Ask a question, Jeff.
Sure.
The light blue line back on the graph, it assumed what % increases for rest of staff?
10%.
10, okay, thanks.
Okay, so the levy formula, I think we've already mentioned the inequities, and this is a slide you've seen before. Bellevue has the same number of students but can collect 20 million more. And this is how we compare to neighboring districts. So while we have regionalization, because we're capped at $1.50, Edmonds can collect 2166. And this is based upon a data set that probably will change next year, but relative to comparing, North Shore is at 21 or 2,221, and we're at 1,557. So even there, we have a good $14 million gap between what Edmonds can collect and what we can. So this was intended to, as you've seen before, demonstrate the inequity of the current formula. And then the final 2 priorities really are related to what we've always asked for. If you're not going to provide funding for construction, give us simple majority. And you need to have realistic construction funding formulas that cover current costs and that are realistic about how many square feet it is the appropriate square feet for each student in terms of school size. So they've undersized the amount of our schools. It's not realistic. And then they assume much lower dollars per square foot construction. So I'm happy to answer more questions, but and there's a lot more depth in this. We can talk at our next meeting, but if we're trying to put together a document, I'm just interested in hearing how you would like us to proceed, not only me, but as a cabinet.
I have a question, and this might be for Mike Gunn maybe, but how do they determine the square foot allocation when you say that it's not currently reflective of what we're doing? But I imagine that a lot of it's different probably school to school, district to district. How do you come up with a scenario where you say it's not accurately reflecting when there's probably a lot of variation out there?
I think that we draw that conclusion from the studies of what districts are spending and how many square feet it costs, or how many square feet it takes to house students today. And I'd suggest that OSPI has submitted requests to the legislature that show the gap. The formula that was created by the state is relatively old, so it not only underfunds by square footage, but it underfunds by the cost per square foot. So I think probably the best document that we would go to today is the most recent request OSPI submitted to the legislature to improve the SCAP formula.
That didn't really answer my question, though. I don't understand I understand why they want to improve it because it's not reflecting reality, but how do they get to that point of saying what it is or what it should be is.
Well, what it is the way the legislature's been rationing money for years. The should be is based on some studies that were done at OSPI and the legislature commissioned that they used to suggest what it should be. Now,
Okay, I guess I'm interested in the study data and what that's based on, but I can get that information later. I'm just curious how square footage changes over year when the students stay the same, like why the formula is antiquated versus what has changed in education that requires it to be different.
I think it was always underfunded, and it has been discussed since I think I came to the district and worked with Mike, that the actual square foot, I don't know if it was from the 50s when they had no interior corridors and everybody entered the building from the outside.
So that's a good example of why
It's
it would change.
a good example.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, that classrooms all exited to the outside and they were just all, that's how my elementary school was.
most of those buildings got tore down because they didn't stand the test
Right.
of time. That was the old Evergreen Middle School before.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good example. Thank you.
We've for so long asked that the requirement for a supermajority be reduced down just to a majority for bonds, capital bonds to be passed. Right now, with the landscape and Olympia looking different than it has in the past few years as a result of the McCleary decision, and different in the sense of the taxpayers now being assessed taxes for the McCleary decision. What is your perspective of what the legislature might do with the supermajority requirement? To reduce it to 50 or to 55 plus one, what are you hearing in Olympia?
I really don't have an ear to Olympia this session. I think a lot of it, as you said, depends upon the outcome of the elections. We continue to make it relevant. They would have to make a constitutional amendment, which is 2/3, and then it has to go before the people. We're just saying, give it a chance, get it before the people. You don't have to make the decision, but the need is eminently clear, and you're not providing construction dollars. You haven't really brought much of anything.
And the irony is it takes a simple majority to pass that if it goes to the people.
Shh. Yeah.
May I ask, are you done? Are you done?
Yes.
Okay. Can I ask a question about the SEBB? Because at the WASDA legislative session, and you might not know this, that something about if somebody works a 0.3, where I guess right now if they work a 0.5, but if they work a 0.3, the district has to pay the 0.7 for their insurance. So they're fully insured. And my thinking is, if you work a 0.3, do you not get a 0.3's worth of benefits? Or is the state really requiring, or if it's still a 0.5, if somebody works a 0.3 or a 0.5, they get 100% of their benefits paid just like somebody that's working 1.0?
I think
Does that make sense?
That's a complicated question. I'd prefer not to. I don't have a specific answer.
Okay.
There's a lot of these anomalies within it, and I agree. There's more questions than answers.
Because most employers, if you the less FTE you pay, if you want fully insured, you pay part of it. That might not be the history in public schools versus private employers.
Well, right now we cover down to 0.33, and I think the one reason we're in a better place is that we've had a richer plan, and that it doesn't allow us to go down to that level. I don't know if it's 0.45, if you remember, Dr. Cohn. So there's a lot of shifts. We also, for a lot of districts that have a lot of staff members above formula, they have a lot of local impact to that. But some of the craziness is that if you were to say be an educator and work 633 hours and then retire and become a sub, you get full coverage for the rest of the year. So these thresholds are a problem, and eligibility for substitutes, just to track them and understand if you perceive that they're going to hit 630 hours, then do you stop using them as a substitute? So there's a lot of unanswered questions that people are collectively surfacing. This was a presentation today on specifically the negotiated agreement between the state and the unions and its contents. There's going to be another circuit by the Healthcare Authority coming up. So like you.
So it may be better to wait and just get updates as we go rather than delve into information that's
right, and
we don't know right now.
That Debbie's office and Rondi's working on. So it would be a collaborative presentation once we have more facts.
But so the question comes in then fully fund, but also if we're funding people that we don't agree, I'm not saying we don't agree they shouldn't be funded, that came out wrong. But if we pay them a per diem so that they can go buy insurance on their own or some other way, that it needs like clarity of the SEBB as well as fully fund or something.
I
don't know.
We can, okay, if that's a suggestion.
The suggestion is because it says fully fund, but fully fund what? Because if it seriously changes or significantly changes what we do, it's just a suggestion for all of us that it seems like there are a lot of questions. We need clarity around the SEBB as well as a request to fund it.
So you're saying fully fund all eligible employees?
Something like that. If it's, or whatever wording we want to do so that there is clarity around a fully fund but eligible employees, again, should substitutes be eligible employees or not?
Well,
I don't know. If they say they are, then.
That's the point.
And that's what we have to understand.
That's the point,
Yeah.
exactly. So if they say they're eligible, they're eligible.
Yeah.
Then the question is, have they given us enough money to pay for all the people they've said are eligible?
Yes.
Who are basic ed employees?
Yes.
We already know that we have to pay out of the levy for the people who are not basic ed employees if they're not covered by some other source, like federal funds.
Yeah, but that there needs, I would like a more clearer statement so that we're asking, we know what we're talking about.
Okay.
Because I'm confused.
So if you could go to the attachment where we actually have the draft and look at what it says.
Oh, yeah, sorry, my computer's
That's okay.
starting.
Then before it probably isn't helpful to edit off the slide, but rather to edit off the draft that I think immediately follows the slide deck.
Yeah, so maybe something clarifying
So
to those people.
do we anticipate, as we learn a little bit more in the coming weeks, the verbiage on some of these descriptions changing potentially?
I think purposefully when Dana and Kathy and I talked about this, the level of knowledge of the average legislature won't be at the tactical level. So even some of the language that I had that was more specific, there's sort of a middle ground there. When we meet with our legislators, our local, or when Gary's meeting with legislators that are of interest. So I guess what I'm saying is we're trying to write it to a level that as things evolve, this would still be applicable.
Yeah. I think if it's not mandatory to approve this tonight, given the timing, that directors should take some time and really look over the specific language and see if there's any further questions that arise, since we're a bit over our time tonight. And I think this was a good initial discussion, and we appreciate the information that you've brought to us tonight, and the work that you've done on this for both of you. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we'll move this to old business.
Yes, unfinished. And right now, we will go over our upcoming agenda items. Dr. Cohn.
Item 14.1 is your regular meeting scheduled for October 23. You have just a few items. Remember, we lightened the October meetings because you've got some special meetings and a conference coming up fairly shortly. So there is no strategic progress monitoring item. At the moment, there isn't a policy review item. You've got a communication plan update and a number of other routine items. ASB Constitution revisions aren't that routine, but they're not major items for you. 14.2 is October 25. It's a special meeting. It's your new director orientation for orienting to the board your new director. Item 14.3 is, as I recall, it's a morning special meeting. It's the follow-up presentation to the summer workshop item on family community engagement planning. And those are the meetings for October.
What is the Housing Hope School Attendance Agreement? What, in simple form, what is that again?
My recollection is that we've got an agreement with Housing Hope for some of our students in a project that we're working on where we have an agreement for them to attend at certain levels. And I'm not sure who in the cabinet can give you a quick, I think that's a Cynthia Jones activity. And your explanations will be in your Friday report as usual.
Okay. We do have a section 15.0. We have an executive session tonight for approximately 30 minutes to discuss with legal counsel representing the district litigation or potential litigation to which the district is likely to become a party. Following the 15-minute executive session, the board will continue in closed session for approximately 15 minutes to consider the position to be taken during the course of collective bargaining and professional negotiations. No action will be taken following the executive and closed sessions. With that, we will be recessing for 5 minutes and adjourning to the blank room.
Silver Lake.
Silver Lake room. Okay?